Well, blessed Tuesday to you as we come to you with your daily encouragement. And we are in the midst of the Lenten season. And in the Lenten season, we have a kind of a focus on being transformed by Jesus, imitating Jesus by going into our own version of the wilderness, to trust in God alone and to start focusing in on the things that are eternal rather than the things that are temporal. And one of the things we've been focusing on has been listening to others, putting others as a priority over our own opinions, our own things. And that even comes for pastors and deacons and others who are to be preachers, to tell the word of God to people. It starts with a listening ear before it becomes a preaching ear. And so now it is the focus of the ministry of helpfulness. And we're still in Dietrich Bonhoeffer's book called Life Together and what ministry looks like in the life together. And so he begins the second service that one should perform for another in the Christian community is to have an active helpfulness. This means initially simple assistance in trifling external matters. There is a multitude of these things wherever people live together. Nobody is too good for the meanest service. One who worries about the loss of time that such petty outward acts of helpfulness entail is usually taking the importance of his own career or their own career too solemnly. We must be ready to allow ourselves to be interrupted by God. God will be constantly crossing our paths and canceling our plans by sending us people with claims and petitions. We may pass them by, preoccupied with our own important tasks, as the priest passed by the man who had fallen among the thieves, perhaps reading the Bible. When we do that, we pass by the visible sign of the cross raised, and we do let that pass by the visible sign of the cross praise thwart our path to show us that not our way, but God's way must be done. I'm going to stop right there, even though it is not a paragraph to end, but this is vitally important to remember. Now, somebody has given me, many people actually have given me compliments, specifically during this time of pandemic, that they view me as being very flexible, and I needed to be. Because it seemed like for every plans that you made during these past 2 years, there were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 interruptions to those plans. And right from the big get-go, I don't know if I call it being passive or just trying to be humble, is to realize that you might make plans and they might make God laugh. You might make plans and they'll have some changes in them. And I've just realized that nothing is for sure. And I can tell you, when I was learning this lesson, and I'm not saying that I was ever perfect in learning this lesson, but when I lived overseas and had other disappointments in my life, I found myself very inflexible. But that has helped me to be flexible during these difficult times. Were they easy? Not all the time. But they came easier when I knew that all I had to say was, this is the plan I have. I'm not sure if it's going to work out that way. And there I would see interruptions. And there I would have to say, is this worthy enough to cry over? Or is it something that we have to adapt to? And that is one of the things that I would say if you have a position that you're supposed to be doing something, is to always make sure that the situation is always open to your helpfulness, not necessarily your rigidness. Now, there is a difference, though, between being just like something like a bag, or should I say a feather that's just being blown and tossed about every which way. That's being very passive. But there is something about if you take those feathers and you make them into a wheel and they become like a windmill of some sort, that's where things are moving, but they have a purposeful order to them. And that's the question that I would always ask you is, you might have a plan, you might have a purpose, and you maybe need to see through that purpose. But you also might need to be a little flexible in going through to that purpose. And that is the thing that I found throughout all the challenges of the past 2 years. I want to preach to people. Well, I can't see people in the same way, so we started to do things online. And there are numerous things of this example throughout. We couldn't meet inside, so we met outside, and we started making a joint service. And the weather only went bad on us really once during that whole time. It was an amazing time to trust in the elements, trust in God to see us through. And sometimes we'd have the service and then it would rain either before or after we had our time together. And those were signs to show that no matter what we did, we could always have a way of seeing it through. Now I say we had to cancel a few times, but actually only once for the outdoor service. But during that whole time, we met regularly as best we were able to do. We started getting a speaker system that would tune in to the radio, and we had so many people that marveled at that. They thought that it was a really big, expensive equipment, and it turned out to be $150, $200, of which many people actually made donations for that. So there were many things that came about because we trusted that God would see us through. But our number one concern, and this is the focus here, is to make sure that the situation had deserved our helpfulness. Because sometimes if you don't do it, quote unquote, the right way, some people just don't do certain things. And that is when we become very inflexible. We don't put the situation first and the means by which that we can be helpful in the situation. Sometimes we ignore it, either by, as Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, our Bible reading, just as the priest who avoided the man on the Samaritan road. So it is a reminder to always look out for ways to not only listen to people, but to be helpful and put their needs first, not our own. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement for you. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time.